I see you found our little hiding spot in the universe. Don't get too comfortable. This is a place where you will find those with an experience that's out of this world, and possibly deep within your life. I welcome you to the Oracles with James Tyson. Lean forward and listen. We will pull you into a supernatural journey with guests from around the world, each one experiencing some of the most extraordinary phenomena this wee planet has to offer. Now, here are the Oracles with James Tyson.
Ryan, Tim, how are you guys today?
Very good.
Excellent. I am really looking forward to coming down there to the Preston Castle Ghost Conference next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've never been there before, and I've heard lots of really cool things about it. And even from one of my friends, Christine George, who had an experience getting tossed down some stairs there at one point, or picked up and thrown down the stairs. Who wants to jump in here and give me a little bit of an idea and give my listener an idea of what this place is and what the history is behind it?
Sure. What the Preston Castle is, it was the original administration building for the Preston School of Industry. Construction started on it in 1890 and was finished in 1894. It's also the same year when the first wards took up residence in it. What this Preston School of Industry is California's progressive act to reform the juvenile offenders. Before the castle was, or Preston School of Industry was formed, if you're a juvenile offender, you actually went to the San Quentin or Folsom prisons, where you was with adult inmates and stuff. So they really didn't want to put them there because there were kids in there, very, very young. We're talking like some of them even preteens that were being put away in there. So this was a way to get them out of the general population of prisons and into a place where they could, one, spend time in school and learning a trade. How it worked is that they would form these kids up into companies, and then they would spend half their day in school, and the rest of the other half of the day they spent learning a trade like farming, raising animals. Some of them would learn how to be a tailor. We had several hydroelectric plants, and they would run those as well. They're electricians, carpenters, blacksmiths. I mean, it's just amazing the number of skills that they would learn. And by the time they got out of there, a lot of them were skilled craftsmen.
Well, that's actually a lot better than being a victim of a pedophile in a men's prison like San Quentin or Folsom. My gosh. Yeah, that was progressive back in the day for the late 1800s.
Right. And later on, during the Great Depression, though, we had a lot of people who couldn't afford to feed their families, and so they would drop off their kids. And they knew the state would take care of them, they would feed them, they would get an education and all that. So, not all the wards of Preston were actual offenders.
Wow. Yeah, I know they did that in England when you just couldn't afford to have your kids. You hand them off to back in the day, like an orphanage. And there was an option. You could possibly years later come pick them up, or when it was time to, if you started making money or something, you can come and get them. But there was some where you actually had to buy your children back. To compensate the institution for what they put into raising your child while you were gone. And then they couldn't afford that, even though they were working. They're crazy.
Yeah.
So it was the original, if somebody wants to follow along at home, actually, if you want to go to the Preston Castle website, it's basically PrestonCastle.com, PrestonCastle.com, and you can follow along a bit of the history through there. And what looks like the castle was just the admin part, correct?
Correct.
it definitely looks like a castle.
Yeah, we the first when our first plot of land was over 200 acres, purchased from the Ione Iron and Coal Company, right?
Yeah, for about $34 an acre.
And then they donated several, about 100 some odd acres. But at its height, Preston Castle covered 1,000 acres there in Ione.
Wow! So it was probably one of the biggest income makers for the community at the time.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is getting a little bit freaky. Some of the there had been a few famous people there. Do you recall any of them offhand?
Well, Merle Haggard is one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
He was sent there because he loved other people's cars a little too much.
Yeah. Well, look at the cars they were out driving around back in the day. I like those cars too. Compared to what's driving around now, I'd grab one of those old ones in a heartbeat, and they were easier to grab back then.
Oh yeah. You just need a screwdriver. That's all.
Yeah, or just look in the visor and the keys will fall down on your lap. Those days. Yeah, I know that the fellow that played Rochester on the Jack Benny show, comedian and actor Eddie Anderson, he was also one of the clients at the School of Industry back in the day. And again, I don't know if he was there because he pinched somebody's car, or if it was one of those things during the Depression, they just couldn't afford him and they brought him there. So it was like Eddie Anderson's a black guy, Merle Haggard's a white guy. Was it common back then where it was an all-race kind of school, or were they discriminatory about who slept in one dorm or not?
We're all mixed together.
Well, it's about time. What's that? About 70 or 80 years before, or 70, 60 years before it actually hit the South, where
right.
Everybody could go to the same school.
One of the ironic things is that we see some of the old pictures. The wards were formed up into companies, and because it was ran like a military school. They would march everywhere. For a while, had wooden rifles, and then later on, they were given real rifles without the firing pin. We have pictures of what would be the company commanders, and you could see that they're different races that are standing out in front of their companies.
The population of prison, or not prison, but institute, was based loosely on California. So as California diversified, so did the population of the school.
Yeah, so you'd have American Indian, the European, Caucasian types. You'd have black people, eventually Asians. Yeah, it would just be a basic mix of the percentages of what the community is.
During its height, there was really only about 2 schools handling the boys.
Didn't have much of a choice. What is it that you found interesting that got you, either you can jump in, Tim or Ryan, that got you interested in this? Because you're not extremely old men that remember this back in the day. You guys are young and full of piss and vinegar. What drew you to this institution, or the actual landmark itself?
The architectural aspect of it really drew me in and into history. My first visit was actually when they were filming Ghost Hunters. After we were kicked off of the property by the sheriff, I came back for the haunt. After that, I decided I had to do tours. I had to find out more information on it.
Had there been tours before that?
Yeah, I mean, historical tours, and they were doing paranormal tours at the time. You're talking about 10 years ago, not too long ago.
Yeah. It is a historical landmark, too, right? It's not going to be torn down. So, sorry, have a lot of the other buildings been demolished? They just kind of keep the front end of it, the old facade?
The rest of the buildings are actually on the other side of a fence on the property that's still owned by the state of California. Wow. The Preston Youth Authority shut down in 2011, right?
Yes, I believe July 31st or July 1st.
Something like that. Yeah, in 2011, that was the end of Preston as a school, or actually the end of all their wards. They were all sent back to their respective counties.
And the funny part is, the school heavily represents California and the rest of the United States. In the 50s, when America was going through a craze of demolish old buildings, add in aluminum style houses, the quick houses.
Yeah, almost like a Quonset house. Yeah.
Yeah. So they destroyed about 26 of the original buildings and added in very boring aluminum style functional buildings.
Damn functional buildings. Can't even get proper asbestos in one of those.
Oh, no, yeah. No asbestos, no lead. Go back to the original to get the asbestos.
Like, there's an association for the castle itself?
Yeah, Preston Castle Foundation. Their job is to basically raise the funds to restore the castle. And the property, the building and about 13 acres of property is owned by the foundation itself. They purchased it from the state of California in 2014.
Yeah. And you're on that, Ryan, you're part of that association, aren't you? The foundation?
No, not anymore. I was voted off the board here on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm not going to talk to you anymore. No. Oh, that's okay. You were a part of it, so you have all the inside secrets.
Maybe.
Maybe you can tell me about them. I'm the only one who's listening right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, until you.
What's the dirt?
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. Staff Sergeant, come on, tell me the dirt. And I'm saying that listener Ryan Mick was in the Marines from 87 to 93. Thank you for your service. Coming after this June 6th, bit of a reflection on those who passed and will never be coming home. But it's those people who actually go out there and join the service to make sure that, as I always say, that I can sleep in on a Saturday and go cut the lawn without having to worry about either the government coming and seizing my lawnmower or getting blown up. So thank you for your service, Ryan. I appreciate that. And thank you on behalf of everybody who's listening. And you can't have my lawnmower. But
This guy's pretty lawnmower.
Yeah, it's a very well prized lawnmower. When you're out there looking around, which Tim or Ryan, which one of you guys got involved first in this crazy place, the Preston Castle?
Tim.
Yeah, unfortunately, it'd be me.
Unfortunately, it would be you, and that's just from the first time you get chased off by the sheriff. When you started doing the tours and stuff there, tell us about the things that you experienced and maybe your clients experienced in there that really spiked your interest in the paranormal.
I did experience a lot of people asking for spirits to do things to them, and they kind of want the spirits to perform, and the boys just don't perform. The boys do it at their own pace. But if you ask somebody to scratch your back, and 3 or 4 hours later they scratch your back, don't get freaked out because you gave them permission. I've seen a few people have scratches appear, but it's generally when they've asked for it. I haven't seen anybody hurt, generally, like I said, when they've asked for it.
Were you there when, or either you there when Christine George got lifted up and thrown?
I wasn't, or I was in another part of the building.
Oh, okay, because it was on some steps as she was walking up. I guess a bunch of people were there, and
I think she had that happen during the haunt.
Oh, okay.
I think it's on YouTube.
Oh, very cool. Nothing like seeing Christine get thrown around, so I'll have to check that out on YouTube.
Sometimes it doesn't hurt to get thrown around a little.
Yeah, what the heck?
Not sense in you.
Yeah, and she's small. She's easy to throw. For anybody over 140 pounds, yeah, you'll be fine. Tim, I know what it's like. I know what you're saying about asking for something. It's like saying, hey, I don't mind you ghosts here. In fact, you guys can come home with me if you want. Well, yeah, don't do that. And there's a specific television show I always think of with a specific person. We won't say Zach's name, but anyway, he'll say, hey, can you touch me? And when he does get touched, he screams like a child and runs down a hall and puddle of his own urine. But you know, you've got to understand, if you're going to ask for something and it does happen, don't freak out. In fact, they're not going to hurt you. They're just dead people.
Well, exactly. I mean, unless you're asking to do stupid things, I mean, for the most part, they get tired of getting asked the same question. How many times can they ask, how old are you, or how'd you die? What's your name?
You got to think of some better questions, and hopefully we're going to get some good ones next week when people show up for these experiences. Get into it. Like,
I've been in groups of people, and they're like, oh, yeah, we're professional, and you're sitting around in the dark, and you're like, okay, we'll ask the question. Then they'll do a voice recording session. And it's like, okay, but could you give the guys a little time to talk?
Yeah.
Instead of, what's your name? 2 seconds later, next question. It's like, okay, shut up for a minute.
Yeah, they're not like talking to us. I got in trouble for asking a ghost a bunch of questions and I was waiting a full 20, 30 seconds. She got so ticked off with me, she actually walked through me from back to front, where the little K2 meter was actually going off on my body as I was moving it across. I could feel her going through it. And I thought she was just being nice, like, oh, hey, I'm here. But then when we crossed her over a few months later, we had a psychic go in and she goes, yeah, she really doesn't like you. You never gave her a chance to talk, answer the questions. It's like, come on. Each, I guess, has a different, be able to draw energy at a different level. And some can answer back relatively quick and some's going to take a bit longer.
Dan, for the most part, if somebody does come to the castle to try to remove them, help them move on, we'll just remove the person.
Yeah, we do it remotely. Yeah, it's it is one of those. It's a conundrum that I find that you were in a place, and I'm thinking too. Here's the spirits who like being there. They like the upkeep and they like the interaction. So they're not going to go because they have a job to do, and that is to help you guys out with the paranormal tours. See what I'm saying?
Well, and a lot of people fail to realize that you don't have to be stuck at that castle if you're a spirit. You could have a spirit in town say, hey, they're trying to do a session at the castle. Let's go check them out.
Yeah.
Because you'd be surprised the variety of boys and men, women that we get. And you're like, well, we never had this kind of person at the castle.
Yeah, it is fascinating. You get people showing up because it's because it's an event and they're hoping to pass a message on to a loved one, or they're hoping to communicate with somebody, and hopefully somebody's going to come along and maybe make them feel good. And plus they get to watch all the crazy humans running around, or humans as you were, crazy living people run around.
The funniest EVP I've had, well, it was more of a voice recording. We were doing a whole session, about 16 people in the infirmary, and it's storming, and they're asking all these questions. Nothing is happening. I get a recording with a doctor and nurse talking to each other, going, do you think they can hear us? Don't they look so funny in the dark?
That's excellent. That's absolutely excellent. It is funny that you get stuff, well, in a storm, it's brilliant because they can actually use that energy to communicate with, like being around moving water or a huge electrical panel or power station or something like that. Do you have anything like that close to it? Do you have a river that runs close to it, or a creek, or someplace they can draw energy from?
Not really. Right now we're putting lights back in the building, which kind of helps energize them and stuff, but no natural sources of kinetic energy, unfortunately. But when we've got big thunderstorms going, we can get a lot of activity going on in the place. It is kind of interesting when that kind of stuff happens, especially if you can feel like a static charge in the air. Sometimes they'll kick their heels up a little bit more than they normally do. A lot of it does depend, though, on the group that's there. If they're just sitting around in the dark, staring at each other, well, the boys get bored. The investigators are bored. The docents are bored. Mm-hmm. And it seems like they just get up and decide to go to bed or something. If you're engaging with them, and we always try to tell people, it's like, stop asking the questions, all the silly questions everybody always asks, and have a conversation. Just talk to them. Stop asking them, how did they die? When did they die? Just ask them regular questions like you would ask anybody else. Or just, Tim and I were up in the Company B dormitory the first time I went out there, and him and I were just having a conversation about the building and stuff like that, and the history. And I was kind of doing it on purpose because one thing I know, because I have got a crap ton of nieces and nephews, is that when you start talking about something that's kind of interests them and you're not talking to them, they, what do they do? Oh, and they want to get in on it, right? Mm-hmm. We had literally voices come piling down the hallway at us. Got it recorded. They did it 3 times to us. In fact, it was so loud that it was heard all the way down into the basement.
That is cool. You know, I get what you're saying. You know, instead of taking some little, going at it as you're talking to ghosts, take a couple of pictures of like a 55 Chevy all souped up, or a hot rod from the 30s, something like that, or a motorcycle. It's something that they would have interest in, and just talk about that and see what, you know, get their opinion on those things. Different types of aircraft or something. But to do the whole ghost thing over and over again, they just, we're here, we're dead.
The biggest problem with the school is a lot of people tend to forget that they're young boys, and they're approaching them like they're basically 90-year-old dead men that have lived their whole life. Some of these boys didn't die from violence. There was a full hospital on the 3rd floor, and there was a hospital on the grounds later on. So the towns would use that for like the Spanish flu, typhoid, malaria, stuff like that.
Well, I was talking to Jeff Davis up in Vancouver, Washington, about the Spanish flu and the soldiers that came over after the First World War and how many people died. It was amazing how that's hit everybody up and down the coast.
Well, until 1955, Preston School of Industry was the only hospital in the Ione, almost in the Amador area, Amador County. It wasn't until 1955 that they built the hospital in Jackson. There were actually, people were having babies there. If you had a farming accident, they brought you to the castle. There was even a post office inside Preston Castle.
So you're talking about 60 kilometers or so to the nearest hospital on gravel and dirt roads, using horseback and cars that can go 10, 15 miles an hour.
So that would also explain why you may have spirits coming through, apparitions of female or young women, maybe in their late 20s or even teens to into their 30s, who may have, it was common to die not really common, but you could die easier in childbirth back then.
And you'd be giving birth at the school too.
Yeah, so you would end up there. It's amazing when you think about that. It's when you add that hospital component to a school like that, it is understandably why you get a real cross-section, a variety of ages and spirits moving in and out of the building. Do you find it have you been there during the day, Tim or Ryan, find it just as kind of, let's just say, hair on the back of your neck going up, whether it's night or day?
Oh, yeah, it's active during the day as well. I've seen full-body apparitions during the day, crossing room. I've been coming down stairwell, and as I get like 6 feet past the bottom of the stairwell, and I'd hear the sound of someone walking down the stairwell right behind me, and I just figure it's one of the boys following me around, so I'd be like, all right, come on, I'm going over here, let's do this. Want to help me?
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I find it too. I get kind of ticked off. We had to do a TV show. I was in a paranormal group. We did a TV show for a local, the cable company out here, and they wanted us going out from midnight till 3 in the morning in the rain. It's like, really? Can't we just go at 3 in the afternoon and get a good sleep? They're there 24 hours a day.
Well, the biggest thing during the daytime, depending on where you're at, is interference from the local people, especially at the castle, because on a Saturday during the daytime, you're going to run into up to 100, 150 people doing historical tours and with staff and all that other fun stuff.
We're getting married there. Getting married on the weekend or some silly thing.
Oh, yeah.
Which would be creepy.
Married on surprise.
We do have weddings out at the castle every now and then, so it is kind of interesting when that happens.
Yeah, that would be. It is a fascinating place. I'm talking to Ryan, Mick, and Tim Ferry. They are out in this wonderful place, the Preston Castle, and belong to a group called Castle Spirits. Does that group basically come out as a result of you guys being in the castle, or is that something you guys do primarily in and around that area? Or do you guys travel around doing any little paranormal investigations outside of Ione?
Well, Castle Spirits is the Castle Spirits group itself is mainly the docent body for the paranormal tours at Preston. We have done stuff together outside of it. The group has gone to Virginia City, done some investigations. Okay, it wasn't last year; it was the year before, right? We went to Calico, where we investigated the Maggie mine out there and did a little tour of the town after hours. That was all fun. I run a group outside of Castle Spirits called the Northern California Amateur Paranormal Society, or NORCAPS. I also run the Castle Spirits team right now as well. So I'm running 2 paranormal groups and a full-time job. Ask me when I get to sleep.
Yeah, right. Are you married too?
No, not anymore.
Okay,
my passed away a few years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's, that whole sleep thing, you can sleep when you're dead.
Exactly, that's what I always say.
Yeah. Well, or if you talk to the dead people, no, they don't sleep. You promise I can sleep when I'm... Oh, man. We'll sleep in another dimension.
Well, I figure I'm going somewhere tropical and warm, so...
Yeah, that's... why would... I always say 2 things. If I'm a ghost, why would I be up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada in the winter when it's minus 40? Or why am I hanging around in a stinky old graveyard? Why can't I just go to Fiji?
I know. Oh, good.
So as long as somebody doesn't lock you in place, man.
Yeah, that's true. What is the spookiest thing? Throwing this out here, tell me something that you both kind of remember as being one of the scariest things you've bumped into out there. Tim, you go first.
I'm trying to think. I mean...
You're trying to pick one out of all the ones that... Okay, there was the headless woman, but she wasn't a ghost.
No, she...
Ryan, how about you?
Well, it's funny because the last few years we've done a lot to get the building up to a lot of compliance standards for safety, and they put in a lot of exit lights over the doors. We were down in the basement one night with a tour. It was myself and 2 other docents, and we're looking down the hallway while the group's in a room, and we noticed down by the door, which is the intake door on the east side of the building, we noticed a dark, shadowy shape walking across and blocking out the light down there, and we're like, well, what the heck is that? And it's funny because one of the docents that was with us, he's kind of skeptical, and he was just literally going, what the F is that? And we're like, I don't know. So we go walking down there. There's nobody down there, no nothing, but whatever it was tall enough to block the exit light above the door.
Interesting. Well, as soon as you said you put exit lights in, I knew it was going to be something blocking an exit light, because I've seen those. The only light that seems to be around, and all of a sudden everything goes dark, and you're thinking, I'm the only guy in here. And what did that? So I'm not going to worry about it.
When you're the only person in there, and you hear pounding or stuff being thrown around, when you go to that area, it's all perfectly not moved.
I've been into a place where we were talking to the ladies around the restaurant, and in the kitchen there was a cacophony of all the pots and pans hitting the ground. And the 2 ladies who worked there just stared at us and we were all like, oh my God, what was that? And they said, nothing. I said, what do you mean nothing? She said, go look, nothing moved. We go in there and just nothing had moved. But we heard the sound of all the shelves coming down and the pots and pans. And she goes, yeah, they do that. They just give us that sound every so often. So I don't know if that's like a residual energy that just happens to have happened that day, or it happened all the time because of the energy of the place. You may get the sound of machinery in there, in the areas that were doing machine work or woodworking, all the different lathes and things like that. Over time, you may get a residual sound in the background. Have you experienced that at all?
Well, actually, at the castle, we have a room upstairs, which we call the not Anna room. So when Zach was at the castle, he claimed to be possessed by one of the head housekeepers that was there, and claimed that was her apartment. Well, that housekeeper never lived in the castle. She was married. She lived downtown. But they've recently, in the last couple of years, they've taken this room and they've actually decorated it up as it would have looked when somebody was there, because it was actually a staff apartment. And we had a paranormal tour one night, and it was really a quiet night and everything. The investigators were sitting around like bumps on a log, and no matter what we tried, they just wouldn't get into it. We're like, okay. Well, when they left, I'm sitting here locking up the castle, and I'm doing my rounds and stuff, and all of a sudden I hear up on the second floor around that room, I hear the sound of all this furniture moving around. And I'm literally at the alarm box, and I'm like, now you guys want to start kicking up your heels. So I just said, all right, I'm out of here. And I just turned on the alarm, went out, locked the door. And then the next day I contacted the gal who decorated the room, and I said, hey, let me know if you had any furniture moved, because there was an awful lot of racket going on in there last night. And she said, nothing had moved, but, it was one of those things. It literally sounded like somebody was shucking around the dressers, the beds, and all that stuff that were up there.
Yeah, that's crazy.
The funniest night I had, the whole night, we had no activity whatsoever. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's disheartened, and we're like, okay, let's do one last session in the infirmary. They had like 14, 15 people there, and everything starts going off. I mean, the K2s, Ovilus, Spirit Box, SP7, everything went on for about 20, 30 minutes. And this one lady made a promise to the spirit, and she broke it, and everything went cold silent. I mean, nothing, no lights, nothing. It was just so funny because it was so many boys were there talking at once, and just one little promise, her taking a picture, when she promised not to take any photos, just shut everything down.
Yep,
that'll do it. You can't, if people try to fool the dead, it's like, really? It's not like they may not be standing right in front of you staring at you as you're trying to sneak something out of your pocket, and, it's with your hidden Russian issue spy camera. It's still gonna, people.
The problem with the living is they think that the boys are stuck in that time period. Most of the boys, if they've been there a long time, they've seen the new equipment. They see the people with cell phones. They know what all this equipment is because they sit there and watch the people use them. So it's not like you're not dealing with somebody from the 1920s. You're dealing with a boy that's not grown up but watched everything advance. So they know what a TV is. They know what a telephone is. They know what that camera, they probably even know how to work it. Because they sat there and watched 100 people or 1,000 people turn it on and set it up.
It's going to be interesting if you ever had an opportunity to get an empty classroom in there and just set up a bunch of recorders around, put some cameras around, a laptop, a TV. Don't turn don't turn that on, but, put a couple of full spectrum cameras on, have your recorders in there, and just do a presentation to an empty room of the history of what's gone on in the world up till now, and see if you've got a whole bunch of curious kids come in there. And when you're talking about anything from world events to inventions and aircraft and the ability to go to the moon and things like that, and giving those pauses and see what kind of conversations you may get in an hour's presentation. Again, just being by yourself in that room. I think that would be kind of cool. You'd probably have a real good following of students at that point.
Yeah, well, actually, they actually like adult humor.
Yeah, because they're all, adult humor is basically, the three of us know adult humor is based on a 13-year-old boy.
Yes.
So, of course they like it. Bring him a girly picture, that kind of thing.
If you want to get the boys to really react and have fun with you, if you have a sense of humor, they will definitely come out and start interacting with you. It's you just got to change it up for them. I mean, they've been there, longer than we've been on the earth, most of them, and they've heard it all.
Yeah.
If you just keep repeating the same questions, they're just going to be quiet and they're going to go, eh. But if you change it up and you entertain them, then they're going to entertain you.
Oh, that'll be fun. I'm really looking forward to this. And it's the 14th to the, don't tell me. 14th to the 16th.
Well, technically the 16th only for the last investigation.
Yeah.
So the meet and greet's on the 14th, and the full thing is going on Saturday.
So Saturday the 15th.
Yeah, Saturday you got the classes, the speakers, the vendors, the investigations.
The vendors, that's me.
Yeah.
It's me and Skeeter. And we promise we're not going to move any ghosts out of there. But we do that. But we won't. We promise we won't. Because I think they're having a good time, and I think they like it that you raise money for the building that they live in. And they're part of that. Here's a question for you. Have you guys heard of Patreon?
Yeah.
Yep. I've got a Patreon account, and what I do is I here's something I'm throwing out to you. It's if you like to travel, because I'm retired and don't have any bills other than a motorcycle payment, and I don't even have a mortgage anymore. Money that I'm raising every month, I draw after I get my 20 people, and I'll be drawing names for a psychic reading, a past life regression, and a astrology chart done. So there's 3 draws a month. But as soon as I get 2,222 people, I will be drawing names once a month, possibly even twice, for a trip for 2. Basically to check off your paranormal bucket list. So if somebody's living in New York and wants to go to the Preston Castle, I'll fly them out and put them up in a bed and breakfast and give them a car rental, and they can do the tours there. Or if you've ever been to Gettysburg and you haven't, or if you haven't been and that's on your bucket list, I'll send you from this coast down there. If you like UFOs, I'll send you to Sedona to watch them come and go from a portal. We can send you out to a UFO festival or conference. And if we fill up our group with about 3,500 people, I will send you to Glasgow, Scotland, send somebody from Scotland to here in the U.S. So that's the plan anyway by the end of the year. What do you think about something like that?
That'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. Hopefully, I'm just kind of giving back to the people who listen. So, and the ones who are interested in coming to a place like the Preston Castle and seeing what it does, because it is very active. You're on kind of in a gold mining area, aren't you?
Yes.
Well,
we're right in the middle of the gold country.
Okay, so when I was talking about like what kind of energy and stuff, you probably have a lot of quartz in the ground. Quartz.
A lot of quartz in the area, and a lot of areas that have been heavily mined as well. I think there's still actually an active gold mine, not right there, just on the outskirts of the town of Ione, too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Because that we found, I was talking to some people down in Tombstone, Arizona, and it's so active there because there's gold, silver, and quartz in the ground, and that solar loading from the sun, it seems they can draw on that and be a little more interactive. So it just dawned on me, yeah, you're right down in kind of the gold rush area. It's very cool. Who's showing up this year, guys, for your speakers?
We got Patrick Doyle from Ghost Mine. Just
cool.
Got program.
Yeah.
So we got Patrick Doyle. We've got Jay Verberg, who's also in Ghost Mine.
Oh, I love Jay.
Father David Deerfeeder. Ross.
You'll love him too.
Yeah, he's a great guy. We have Ross Allison and David Weatherly are going to do the little thing on the haunted lighthouses.
Perfect.
Harvey Alphaus, who he's really into remote viewing. And he's also going to be doing a class this year for us as well on remote viewing.
Excellent. I definitely want to talk to Harvey when I'm down there. I'm really, really interested in that.
We got Nicole Strickland.
Mm-hmm.
And Nicole is also going to be doing a class on developing a paranormal research team as well. And then Matt Goldman from APRA.
Yeah.
And then Ross Allison is going to be given a class as well on investigation journaling.
Oh, perfect. I was always told one of the most important things to take into an investigation is a notebook.
It's funny because Ross has come out with his team to investigate the castle, and I have also gone to Italy with him for one of his little haunted trips.
Nice.
Luckily, he wasn't so big on documenting everything while we were on the haunted trip. But when he brought his team up, he literally was made sure that they had that piece of paper in their hands, and he's like, "Did you mark when you went into the room? Did you do that?"
He runs it tight.
He runs it really tight. He has them marking down, everything they did and what time and all that.
Yeah. Specifically, if you burp or if your stomach growls.
Yeah, he wants to know.
Yeah, because I tell you, listening back on that recording, and thinking you've got a demon growling when you actually, no, it was my stomach. It's okay.
Well, that's one of the biggest problems with the investigators, with the public, is you'll tell them, hey, you have to tag these sounds, and then you'll sit there and stare at people while their stomachs are growling, and they won't say a word.
Yeah, it's not like you farted. Come on.
And it's like, I hear your stomach from across the room. I see you're the only one there.
Yeah, our big joke was that's how ghosts actually communicate. If you ever notice how many people's stomachs growl in a paranormal investigation, there's something going on.
Well, to give you a kind of a funny story, so when Rob Lowe came out and filmed his pilot episode for the Lowe Files,
right?
They fed us all beforehand, and it was all Mexican food.
Oh, God,
and I'm sitting there like laughing, and I'm looking at everybody, and they're like, "What's the matter?" I go, "Yeah, you're going to get a lot of stuff on audio tonight."
That's crazy.
Sure enough, everybody's tummies were rumbling. It's funny, they're trying to make it out like they were almost in the building alone all night long, but Rob really had about a group of 25 people that were following him down each of every one of the hallways.
That's funny. Well, at least he didn't make up any stories, did he, like the other guy?
He didn't listen to what I was telling him. So the housekeeper who was murdered, I pointed out the room where her body was found, and then he decided to go do whatever he found on the internet. He went underneath the stairwell in the kitchen. And it's funny, I'm sitting in the hallway, and he's all like, with one of his sons, and he's all, yeah, this is where her body was found. And I yelled down the hallway, that's not where her body was found.
God. Was her body found actually in a loading dock or something like that, or
no? It was in a storage room.
Storage room, okay.
Well, that storage room is actually what we call the plunge bath. At the time, they had put boards across the plunge bath and used it as a storage room. Her office was right next to it, which we used for storage. So when you come down the castle, you'll actually be able to see the plunge baths because the boards are all up, so you can see the pool and everything now. And what that was is when the boys first came in, they would enter this door we called the intake door, and the room that later on became her office was where they would strip the boys naked and shave their heads. And then they would move into the next room, and they would dip into the plunge bath. It was full of chemicals to kill parasites.
Yeah, it's like a delousing.
Yeah. It's a pretty
even
big pool.
Deep enough for you.
Yeah.
Damn.
It is a deep pool, and they would swim to the other side. They come out, and then if the guards were satisfied, they were allowed to go shower in the shower room next door. And then they were given fresh clothes.
Damn. Do you know if her ghost is there, or do you think she's crossed over?
We believe she's crossed over. Nobody has been able to make any communication with her. She was well loved by everyone, so there was really no reason for her to stay around.
Yeah. Did they catch the person who killed her?
No, they actually did not. It is unsolved to this day. They had someone that they accused of her murder, but he was acquitted of the crime. He was tried 3 times, and finally he was acquitted. He ended up murdering someone after he was released, and he confessed. And at the same time, they also pinned a few other murders on him, and he confessed to them, but he would not admit to the housekeeper's murder. And the interesting thing is that she was found in the storage room. The storage room was locked, and her office was locked, and she had her keys on her. So whoever murdered her didn't take her keys, and wards would not have had access to any keys. So it's more likely that another person at the castle who had access to keys is the culprit.
Okay, so not one of the clients, it was one of the co-workers.
That is what we believe, because, I mean, a ward wouldn't have been able to get any keys, so how would she still be locked up in the room?
Yeah. Interesting. Well, that makes total sense then. And was the fellow that had been acquitted all those times, was he a ward, or was he?
Yeah, he was a ward of at Preston, and the reason why they went after him is because she was seen arguing with him earlier that day, and so it was kind of a thing where they're like, "Oh, well, they were arguing, so it must have been him."
Yeah, that's as a police investigator, that's one you'd want to talk to, but it doesn't mean you hang your hat on that. That's too much of a give me. And
during the investigation, they pulled up FBI from Los Angeles, and they investigated the entire school. You're talking about 600 boys at the time, and all the staff.
And then they just stuck with that one guy who had an argument with her. Interesting. Yeah. Unless Buddy had a key. He stole from somewhere.
Well, if he had managed to get a key, then, it would have been really hard for him to get a key. Everybody had to keep track of other keys and stuff, and not to mention, not many people would have had access to the storage room.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot it was the storage room. It was not her office there. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Have you guys ever saw, or have you heard from the psychics that will come out there, if there are people who have crossed over and come back and hanging out there? Like spirits as opposed to ghosts?
Yes. We call them transients there.
Okay.
And they literally, they'll come in and kind of hang out for a while, and then they go away again. Also, sometimes people in the area who pass away, sometimes before they move on, they hang out at the castle. Almost like, them saying goodbye, because, for a long time, the castle was the chief source of employment in the area.
Right.
And then they disappear. But the words seem to be like the constant. And there are a couple of staff members who are still there too, watching over the wards, who haven't moved on yet either.
That's very common, where you get people who, the four reasons that we've always thought of people not crossing over, one was because they're little kids and they don't want to go anywhere without their parents, so they're going to stay back. People who have a religious issue and maybe coveted their neighbor's wife and think they're going to go to hell, and the ones who don't know they're dead, and then the ones who still they perceive a job to do, like nurses in hospitals and things like that, because they see the patients there still, and they think that's part of their job, is to stay back and look after everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very, very common. We have a residential school not too far from where I am, and it's one of those schools where they would take First Nations or American Indians and put them in and kind of teach the quote-unquote Indian out of them, also beat the Indian out of them. A lot of kids were murdered, sexually abused, and we had a good nun and a good First Nations gentleman spirit ghost hanging back with the kids who won't cross, and then the priest who killed two of them and diddled a few more keeps telling them, if you don't listen to them, which is us, you shouldn't go. God's not going to want you, and if you go, I'll tell God what you did. It was like, yeah, you're the victim. You're going to tell God what you did. And it was a bad nun, so it was trying to get those people to move on too. But luckily, they had a couple of good adults sticking with them to kind of look after them still.
Yep, we have the same situation going on.
Yeah, you got some negative grumpy Gus ghosts.
We've got at least one who actually kind of disappeared on us for a little while, but he showed back up again. When he showed back up, he just wasn't as grumpy. So something, I think, kind of scared the daylight back into him.
Give me an example of the kind of shenanigans he was up to?
Well, not really exactly sure, who he was in when he was alive, but on one of the stairwells by the staff dining room, he normally is up on one of the landings, and he'll scare the bejesus out of you because you'll be walking by, like going over to the superintendent's office, and you just catch him standing on the stairwell glaring at you. And it's one of those things you see out of the corner of your eye, and you just see this person there, and then you look over and, again, they're gone, but that feeling of just anger and stuff just permeates you. And he'll retreat in the little room that's over there. It just, he would just be extremely, extremely angry.
Yeah, maybe just all the tourists, and he's trying to get his job done, and everybody's making too much noise, or maybe that's about as negative as he is. Because most of the time, if they're idiots in life, they're going to be idiots before they cross over. If they cross over and come back, at least they're not idiots anymore. It's all peace and love and light and fluff and unicorns and rainbows. But it's that guy who hasn't crossed over. He's just the jerk he was in life. And if he was a grumpy old guy who everybody had to, I don't want to say Staff Sergeant Ryan, but, if he's a senior NCO and he's really choked at everybody not washing their hands or, dressed properly or something, it probably twists him off a bit, and he just has no control over it because he's dead. So,
yeah, I think he just doesn't.
Say that again? You faded.
Well, I think he just doesn't like people.
Oh, what a great place to be then. In a place that's built for people. Then he could just go haunt maybe a grain shed a couple of miles away or something. But he just is in the wrong place there at the Preston Castle. What is the big industry there now that school has been shut down?
Oh, see, we got Mule Creek State Prison, which is down the road, which is on the old Preston property. That's maximum security, right?
Yeah, it is. When you actually get there, you're going to see how really big the castle actually was.
Like the property and everything, yeah.
Property. Because, every location had its own set of buildings. Yeah, boys out on agricultural land set up in a small unit.
Yeah. As you're coming in, if you're coming off the freeway coming into Ione, you'll get to a point where you see these gravel pits and all that. Those gravel pits were actually part of Preston way back in the day. You'll pass when you get by the historical marker for Preston. There's a Castle Oaks golf course. Well, that golf course used to be our agricultural land where we raised all of our farm animals, our crops and everything.
In fact, if you come in the right area, you'll still see some of the rails with some of the signage going into the former Preston land. It goes out about maybe 5 or 6 kilometers.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, it's a good chunk of land there. I'm really looking forward to coming down and checking it out and hopefully getting tapped on the shoulder. Is there like an auditorium in there, or when we as vendors show up, where are you going to stick us?
In the basement.
Okay.
It'd be the coolest spot at a castle, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the dungeon. The basement.
Yes, yes. The basement's actually rather large. We've got several really large open areas. And there's also right behind the castle itself is an annex building, which is connected on 3 floors by a hallway. So we set up vendors in the basement of the annex, what we call the day room area, and then what's also known as Alpha Company is where we put our speakers and stuff. They're really large rooms.
Yeah, you'll see the classroom. It'd be right next to Alpha Company.
When looking at the castle from the front, out to the right, is that where the prison is?
The prison was all around it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a picture right now, and there's a tower in the background.
No, that tower is actually from, so back in the 70s.
Oh, okay.
Preston Youth Authority built a fence. They put up a fence and they put the main administration building, the castle, on the outside of the fence, and they fenced out the Preston Youth Authority ground, what remained of it.
Okay.
That tower is actually for the guards of the Preston Youth Authority.
So the funny part is, you had this big, still in the 70s, you had this huge property running with the administration castle building, like, right on the edge, kind of encircled by it. Like Ryan said.
Yeah. That one first castle is a bunch of staff housing. The old superintendent's house is there, and it's all done up in Tudor style.
Yeah, really nice.
Yeah, really nice. It's funny because that house was originally the superintendent lived inside the main administration building along with several staff. But during the Great Depression, he gets the state of California to build him a Tudor-style 2-story house with a full basement and a pond and everything in the back with a waterfall and or just like, what bodies did he know were buried where?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully he wasn't getting paid to incarcerate people.
Well, the thing is, it's like they used to, in the beginning, probably not in the very beginning, within the first couple of years, they started referring to the superintendents as the czar on the hill. Mm-hmm. Because it was so far away from the capital and any big cities that they could do whatever they want. They had all this free labor.
Okay, yeah.
It's like when the boys would make distractions to try to escape, like they burned down this huge building called the Trades Building, which it was roughly 2/3 the size of the castle. And they burned it down to the frame. They literally had to rebuild it themselves.
Yeah, you don't want to burn too much down if you don't make it out. Because you're going to have to rebuild it yourself.
They start a fire and then get the whole town distracted and try to escape.
Yeah, diversions.
It has a bell tower. Is there a bell in there still?
No, actually, with the top of it, there was never a bell there. It was supposed to be a clock tower.
Okay.
So it's got a round face on each side, but they ran out of funds to install the clock. But the very top of it is a water tank. There was a reservoir. Henderson Reservoir is about 4 miles away, and they would pump water through an 18-inch pipe down to the castle, and that would, when it got to Preston, it was about 180 psi, and it would just shoot right up that tower, fill up, keep that tank full, and then that water was also used to run the hydroelectric generators.
Oh, nice.
We also had a water-powered elevator for a while.
Shut up, really?
Yeah, they took it out when they realized it was faster to just walk up the stairs.
Okay. Yeah, and if you did have a broken leg or something, they just buried you out back.
Yeah.
We're just about half a mile away.
Yeah. It's like just a short hobble. What do you guys do for Halloween out there?
At Halloween, we throw what's called the Preston Castle Haunt. And basically we turn it into a haunted house type attraction. It can take about 25, 30 minutes to go through it. We take you up all the way to the second floor, down all the way back into the basement. We've had over its years, we've had several petalities and a few pootalities. It's one of our largest fundraisers for the castle.
Oh, nice. And if you want to get tickets for anything like that, you go onto the PrestonCastle.com website and click on events. I see you've got an event coming up. You had one on April 14th. You've got another one on Sunday, June 9th. It's the, no, I'm just thinking now. It would have been 2 days ago when people are listening to this, but it was it's basically like this photo day or something. You just kind of head out there and you go around and take pictures.
Yeah, so photo day, we do about 3 of them a year, usually different times of the day during the year. Because sometimes you want to get the morning light, sometimes you want to catch the evening light. It just changes the whole aspect of the castle when, with the lighting. Some people bring out models. It gets kind of crazy there with everybody around trying not to get in each other's pictures and stuff. Yeah. It's just amazing to see what people take. It's really, really cool.
You have another thing called Plays on the Patio. What's that?
So we have a group that comes out, and basically they're renting the castle and giving the proceeds to us to conduct plays out on our back patio.
Nice.
And they get I think they get a meal, right? Yeah, I think there's a meal involved. So they're getting fed, they watch the play, and all that. We used to do our own play as well. This year, though, there's just too much going on because this is the 125th anniversary of the castle.
Right.
So they dropped it because there was just too much to do.
And then they realized you guys couldn't act. So that was the other thing, too.
Yes. I definitely was not in danger of being discovered.
No, and we've got the Paracon coming up the 14th and 15th, and then the 125th anniversary is June 29th. What kind of shenanigans do you have planned for the anniversary?
I believe they've got some period actors and some self-guided tours going on. Not sure what else beyond that, but there should be a lot of people there. It's going to be a lot of fun.
There was some. They're going to bring out what I was told. They're going to bring some local history over from a place called the Knights Foundry and the Kennedy Gold Mine, and kind of so people who want to show up. It's all and it's period related to the house itself, which would be kind of cool. So if you live in the area, and this is like about 45 minutes south of Sacramento,
to the east of Sacramento.
Oh, to the east. Okay, so it's, if anybody's listening out in that area, heck, just put that on your bucket list and head out there, or your summer list anyway. It'll be kind of fun. That's June 29th at the Preston Castle, and, anybody in the area, my God, that's some pretty good history bouncing around for the community. And you have a movie night on the patio out back. Is it a pretty good-sized patio?
Yeah, they actually used to form the kids up out on the patio, for sometimes punishment. A lot of times it was to pass along information. We've actually heard from some old people who said they'd worked there that the patio at one time had a swimming pool in it.
No.
And you look at the concrete, and there's some patterns in the concrete that kind of lends credence to it. But we have nothing concrete that says there was a swimming pool.
Yeah, we just do one of those above ground scanners that go through and see how many bodies you got buried in the concrete.
Well, that's what you do to the pools, You say, okay, it's time to fill in that pool.
I took a course years ago on how to find graves, like you're walking in a field or something, how to identify an old grave. And, of course, there's some real interesting indicators that jump out at you, but they're very common in places where there isn't a grave. So for the first year or so, I'd be walking across the field and go, oh my God, it's a grave. Oh no, it's not. But you start feeling that, is this a grave? Could have been? No, it's just a depression in the ground. Everyone just calm down. But do you find, is there a cemetery actually on the property itself too?
It's not on our property. It's actually next door on a property that's now owned by CAL FIRE. And it was the original cemetery for the Preston School of Industry, there are 16 headstones there. One of the wards that we know still stays at the castle, his headstone is over in that cemetery.
Do you remember the guy's name, the ward?
Yep. Samuel Goins. I was drawing a blank there for a second.
Samuel Goins. Oh, that's interesting. So I'm going to, I'll remember that. Maybe see if I can have a chat with Samuel. Sorry.
He likes to play practical jokes on people.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
He's he and I we'll run around playing practical jokes on everybody. Yeah, that'll be fun.
He passed away by being shot in the back while trying to escape.
Shite. How old was he? Like under 20 years old?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He was like, I believe it was like around 17. We have to look it up to see.
That's crazy.
Yeah, well, what had happened is a guard was trying to give a warning shot, and Sam zigged when he should have zagged, and he literally ran right into the bullet.
Your Honor. And that's my story, and I'm going to stick with it. It's a warning shot square between the shoulder blades. My gosh.
Kind of like when you shoot somebody in the head. It's, I didn't mean to shoot him.
Sam had tried escaping several times. It was during a period they called Preston Republic. They were trying a period of self-governance at the castle. Each of the ward dorms had drawn up their own constitutions. They elected their officials. They had a president over it. It was literally the United States in microcosm. What happened is the larger boys started taking over, and it got bad for any of the boys who weren't popular and all that, and believed that Sammy just couldn't take it anymore, and he wanted out.
And they took it very serious. I mean, they had a court, judge, jury, and they carry out the sentences at that court. And it was, I think, cottage number 2.
The ward houses had, when this happened, they would convert a room in the ward cottages to what they called federal prison. And the colonial building we have, which was also known as Honor Cottage 1, it actually still has the federal prison room still intact.
Oh, you definitely know it is.
Yeah, they bricked up the windows. They blocked the window that's above the door. I mean, you walk into that room and you can just feel it. The whole feeling of the room changes when you're in there.
Yeah, you see one of those guys that doesn't want to move on. Obviously, doesn't want to move on. I wonder if he's finding his safe place there.
Yeah, I think also he's waiting for others to move on with him.
Yeah, his peer group. Yeah, that's crazy.
For people who are into psychometry, here's a little interesting fact about the construction materials in Preston Castle. It's a brick building. Bricks, though, come from Folsom and San Quentin prison. These bricks were actually created by some of the worst criminal offenders. That's
interesting vibration that would be in those things.
Right. And you just figure that, how many thousands and thousands of bricks are in that building.
It is interesting. Friends of mine do psychometry. One of my friends lives in Wales. She actually was on a TV series, basically the United Kingdom's best psychic or whatever, and she won that. But she could touch things, and it's the most bizarre psychometry. It's like picking up a belt buckle and saying, oh, this belonged to John, and this is how he lost it, and this is where he lived, and this is his last name, and this is who he's married. It wasn't like, oh, yeah, this came from a soldier. It gets right down. You may as well just, it's your front page of your CV. It's got all your details on it. And you just kind of look at her and go, wow, how did you do that? And I can imagine what you would pick up from anything. And she does not just metal, which is the easy one, but she'll do anything. Depending on how many people have touched it, but that energy, that negative energy getting stored in something like wood or brick, and then that brick being moved around just creeps me out.
Yeah, and we also find too that we have a lot of people come out to investigate. I mean, God, lots of them every year, but some of them bring things with them.
Yes.
we've actually had one night where something that someone brought with them was actually attacking all the other investigators, and they were literally dropping. I kid you not, they were like dropping like flies. Just suddenly, they would start saying a certain phrase, and it took a little while for the docents to figure out what was going on, because someone would start saying a certain phrase, and all of a sudden they would just like hit the ground.
Wild. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I know people who are of a higher vibration, or we call it an empath, they will bring stuff home with them all the time. Of course, if you're bringing it home, it's going to hop in the car with you when you travel, tapping you on the shoulder, wanting to hang out with you or whatever. But we do bring things to haunted locations. Sometimes we end up bringing more home. Sometimes some of the ones we brought will stay because it's kind of cool, depending on the energy of the location. But that, to bring somebody that's a jackass with you, that's, was it a woman who brought it? Yeah, it's probably some guy who's got a crush on her and didn't like other people. You know, she's got this thing planned. I want to ask questions. And when someone else asked them, it was like, no. That's Sally's job. You get your boyfriend out of here, for gosh sakes. He's screwing up all the investigations.
Yeah, it was definitely it was a bad night. Had to get people out of the building and all that. It's like whenever we give the tour, we always tell people, if you start feeling uncomfortable, dizzy, the building for a little bit, and kind of let them reset before we bring them back in.
Do you find it's the kind of the fear of the unknown, or what some people get a little bit anxious because they keep thinking, you know, every corner they walk around, they're going to get jumped by some Yahoo, or it is more the fear of, oh my God, I'm going into a haunted location, as opposed to I'm here because I'm actually interested in communicating with somebody who's passed over. Do you get the both of them?
Yeah, we get both of them. I had a group that came in one time, and they were a veterinary office. This was like a team building for the office. And I brought in, you know what the ghost meter is, right? The little analog EMF meters and stuff. I love the ghost meter because of being analog. It's an instant response. So I had given them all a ghost meter, and I could see they were all really, really nervous. And we walk into the building, so we go into the lobby, and there's another inner door which we go through to get into the castle proper. And they've got all their ghost meters on, and you know, it flashes with lights, and they beep whenever it detects things over, I think, 3 milligauss. Well, they're walking down the hallway, and they're right by the old Waterman post office, and all of a sudden, all the meters bury the needle. And they're all flashing and beeping and stuff like that. And it was like, I'm just now coming through the door, and I'm getting ready to close it, and I just see this herd of people rotate at me, and they're about to bolt over me. And I was like, nobody move.
It's
and
okay.
So I mean, they were literally, some about to poop themselves. And so I'm like, let's figure out what's going on here, because, you know, having that many meters go off all at the same time was not something you normally see. So I pull out, I think, a K2, and I'm like looking around, and it turned out it was a ground fault in one of the lights.
Yeah.
And so the ground fault was triggering all the meters and stuff. I mean, I could trace out the area and everything, but yeah, they were literally about to run me over to get the hell out of the building.
What are they thinking when you walk into a building like that? And that's what fascinates me. You get the wannabe ghost investigators who will jump a fence and go into an old house and start walking around in candlelight with the recorder and a flashlight, and all you need is a little bit of dust to fall in front of them, or a door to slam, and good Lord, off they go. It is silly. My listener on this show, we already know ghosts exist. So we don't really, when we go out and want to chat with one, we want to talk about who they are and their history, as opposed to prove it to. I need you to say this in my recorder so I can prove it to my friends that you exist. We don't have to do that. We already know they exist. I'm just curious about why you haven't crossed, and where you are, and how do you like it here, and what your association to the building is, or the land. Tell me a little bit about yourself. You know, it's That's the kind of thing I like to do, and it's the ones that are absolutely terrified of the unknown going into one of these things. I find a little bit awkward. It's like, why are you doing this? You're just going to either scare yourself or come out of here, bringing a couple of them home with you, and it's not going to be too much fun for the next few weeks.
Okay, here, I got one for you. We had a public overnight.
Oh, hold on, Tim.
Okay.
Yeah, it took you 40 minutes to remember one. Go ahead.
No, this is in regards to what we're talking about right now, as far as like people doing an investigation that really have no clue what they're doing, or just anyway. So we had two people drive up from Los Angeles, about 440 miles. Woman sees a bat, immediately wants to leave. They paid to stay over. They got a hotel. They drove up to 7.5 hours, whatever. Just seeing a bat, they're like, okay, we're done.
Yeah, thanks very much. I've seen the bat.
He was a ward of the Preston Youth Authority.
Yeah, so he actually was a ward when the old Preston was still around.
Oh, man.
He wanted to do it as far as, like, check out the administration building, because he grew up in the shadow of the administration building under Preston up until 2011. So he's like, family reunion basically with the building.
Yeah.
It lasted, he was there like 20 minutes.
I would have basically driven her back to the hotel, dropped her off, and came back.
Yeah, he didn't look like he was happy.
No, that is weird. What if she's at home, walks outside and sees a bat? Where's she going to go now? We got to move. I saw a bat, for God's sakes. Hey, guys, give me another rundown on who is speaking and on what subject. 14th, 15th at the Preston Castle at your Ghost Conference, please.
Well, let's see. We got, first off, we got David Deerfeeder, who's going to be kicking off the conference. I'm not sure exactly what he's speaking on. David, we just kind of let him do his thing.
He tends to sing songs to the boys, too.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then we got Ross Allison with David Weatherly, and they're going to talk about haunted lighthouses along the coast. And then we got Nicole Strickland. Not sure exactly what she's talking about either, but usually she talks about a lot of the stuff happening down in San Diego area.
At the Queen Mary.
Jay Verberg, I know his latest thing is the film that he's working on with the League of Extrasensory Gentlemen.
Yeah, so he's working on a project. He may talk about it. It's a very cool location that he's working on.
Yeah. And then
is he working on the old Wheeler Hotel?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love staying there.
It's very cool. And then we got Harvey Althouse, who's I know he always talks about remote viewing. It's very fascinating talk that he gives. He also does, when he's not speaking, he does a lot of stuff at his table to help people as well. And then Matt Goldman, who's one of the founders of APRA, he'll probably talk about a lot of their collection techniques and EVPs and stuff.
What is APRA?
They're, kind of a big investigation group. Matt believes APRA to be on the forefront of investigation research. With APRA, he also specializes in investigating historical properties and conducting fundraising events in which the public can learn various techniques. Matt Goldman and Brandon Alvis, they formed APRA group, and they're very, very fascinating, the techniques that they use to gather a lot, especially a lot of audio evidence. Brandon was supposed to show up this year. He got busy. I think they both work for filming, right?
Yes.
So they work, they actually film on locations, and sometimes they do.
Okay.
American Paranormal Research Association. Tim
American Porn. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then we got Patrick Doyle from Ghost Mine. Patrick, I think if we didn't invite him, he would show up anyways.
Yeah, he said, well, Jay's not going. He's the kid. He's the newbie. I'm going to go, damn it.
He's very informed and very interesting to listen to.
Yeah, we love Patrick. He's got family in the area, so that's one of the reasons why he just loves coming down to visit us and stuff. The first time I met him was 4 or 5 years ago on the USS Hornet for their Paracon.
Nice. How was that on the Hornet?
Oh, it was great. I really liked it. They haven't done one in a couple years, which is kind of a shame, but you had to keep an eye, and we still even have to keep an eye on Patrick, because Patrick likes to, when the investigations are going on, he likes to disappear.
Yeah.
he finds himself a dark little corner and sits there with his digital recorder, and he just kind of starts asking questions. Well, at the castle, there are several little dark corners you can get into. He'll sit there in those little dark corners, and people come by and they want to start doing their thing and not realize that he's sitting there in a dark stairwell.
Yeah, he'll do it by himself.
Then you have screaming going on down the hallway because they realize.
I think the one night he disappeared for like 3 or 4 hours, just sitting in a corner. He's not there to scare the people. He's just there. He's heavily focused.
Yeah.
He knows exactly what he's looking for.
And David Deerfeeder, too, he's kind of cool. He's actually, he's a medium, so, which is kind of funny because he's also a Catholic priest, isn't he?
He started a new Catholic church.
Oh, okay, so it's not all ghosts or demons and run screaming from them? Good. Those are the demon hunters. You have ghosts in your house? No, you have demons. I will go exorcise them from your... No, just calm down. It's my grandmother. We just want her to go. She's rattling around here. And she smells of White Shoulders perfume and Marlboros. Hey, gonna let you guys go, but I want to thank you both. I've got Ryan Mick and Tim Ferry. They are hosting a event at the Preston Castle. And again, please go to PrestonCastle.com and find out. They are hosting this wonderful ghost conference on June 14th and 15th. Myself and Skeeter Wellhouse is going to be there. Christina George is going to be there. Christine George. So is Ryan and Tim and all their guests. So I really want to thank you guys for the time you put in with me today, and really, really look forward to seeing you next week.
Excellent.
Okay, have fun, and I'll see you soon. If anybody's in the area around Sacramento and a little bit west, please drop in the Preston Castle if you're ever driving through there. It sounds like a wonderful place, particularly if you're interested in paranormal activity. Keep an eye on for events that are going on at the Preston Castle if you are driving down or driving by. It'd be a great idea. And for those of you up here in the Pacific Northwest, if you're ever driving down to Disneyland with your kids, hey, drop off into Preston Castle. Do a ghost tour. That ought to be fun for the children, too. Thanks, you guys.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Night, and I live in the absence of light, and my shadow has a life of its own, watching you while you sleep all alone.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. And hey. Let's be careful out there.
Far over the snow, what are those voices? They sing as they go, what are those voices? Look up for the mountain. Somebody better hide through the hail, like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. We are after you, dead or alive. We are out to get you, dead or alive. And forget your soul. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done. Throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the man they're after now. Run through the hail like a pack of angry wolves on the trail. Dead or alive, we are out to get you, dead or alive. If you're the one, better run away. Son, you are done. Throw your gun away. Here come the Mounties to get the man they're after. No!